What's going on, everybody? Welcome to GameFreak. Today we are going to talk about the Super Pockets from Hyper Megatech, which is a sister company of Blaze, who makes the evercade. And if you're unaware of what the Super Pockets are, they are these handhelds right here. You have two different kinds here. You have the Capcom, the Capcom Super Pocket, which has a Capcom library built into it. Forget exactly how many games, quite a few though. And on top of that, there's a dummy cart back here. You can play your evercade carts in this on the go. So that's the Capcom, and then the Taito has a Taito library built into it, and it also has a dummy cart that you just pull out and you can play your evercade carts in here. Now, I've had these things for right around 90 days. It hasn't, like I said, it hasn't quite been 90 days yet, but I am going to give you my overview on these, on the time that I have had with them, and how they're holding up. These devices are great if you're not part of the evercade world, or if that's what you're going to call it, the world, the evercade community, then these are great starters right here. Because these will run you right around $60. And, you're only going to pay $20 for an evercade cart. So on top of the library that are already in these, you're going to have, most of the evercade carts are multi-game carts. So you're going to have a long list of games, like, almost immediately, the minute you start buying evercade carts. So there are pros and cons to these handhelds. And let's start out with the pros. Let's start off on a positive note. The first pro that I am going to say about this is $60. $60, you can't really beat that price point. They don't feel cheap. They're nicely built. It does have a small screen, but it has a beautiful picture to it, which I will get to in a minute. But the D-pad, very responsive. It feels good on your thumb. The A, B, X, Y buttons, really nice. I have big hands, and even though this thing is small, I had zero problems playing anything on this. And then, of course, you have your select and start button and your menu button. So let's get into the picture quality of this thing. So it does have a very bright screen, very clear. It has a beautiful picture on it for such a small device. I do recommend using headphones because it has that one little speaker in the front, and it is very loud for how small it is, but you get a better experience wearing some headphones, and there's a headphone jack on the bottom, so I do recommend plugging in some headphones and getting the full effect, But this picture quality, it's really nice. The games look good. They don't glitch out or anything. Really good little product for $60. Another pro about these things is the battery life. It's something that I can't say for the Evercade EXP, which is their other handheld device, which I do love, but it just doesn't hold a charge too well. These seem to hold a charge really well. It does not take long to charge these things, like, fully, and I have been getting a little over 4 hours on each of these. So, the battery life hasn't dwindled or anything over time, and I do play these things quite often. So the battery life is another pro when it comes to these Super Pockets. Another pro with these is, they stand by the name, Super Pocket. These will fit into your pocket without too much bulge, coming from the pocket. Unless you're trying to impress somebody, then you want to add a little bit more to your pocket. But the other thing with the name is it might be confusing to some people. Some people might think it's one of your mom's toys that she keeps in the nightstand next to her bed. Like with any product, when you have positives, there comes some negatives. And there are some negatives on these Super Pockets. Let's start out with the shoulder buttons. Now, these shoulder buttons, whoever's idea it was, this was just an awful idea. The way these things are, you press in on these things. Luckily, most evercade games, there's only a few that I can think of, actually use these. See, these things you push in, and on the like EXP and the let's take for example like the Ambernick RG35XX, you press down on them, which is a lot more comfortable. But these, I mean, these are just like poorly placed, and luckily, like I said, you only use them on a couple games. So my recommendation is, and what I do is, I just don't play those particular games on the Super Pocket. I play them either on my VS or my EXP. And those games that I'm talking about, well, here's one of the carts anyway. This is my favorite evercade cart, and this is Always Awakening and Cathedral. Now, Cathedral is my favorite game that of any cart that I own. I love this game. Cathedral is a blast. Unfortunately, you can't play Cathedral at all. It won't even load up. I mean, it's not compatible with the Super Pocket. You can play Always Awakening. However, you know, when we were in the evercade community, when we were all complaining, saying, hey man, we need to be able to remap these buttons because, you know, everyone has their own preference on how they want their buttons mapped and their button placements and everything. Well, on Always Awakening, I know it's not just me, a lot of us, in that game, the default is you use the select button to like switch through like different magics and agilities and everything when you're fighting bosses, and that was a real pain in the ass. So what me and a lot of other people did, we remapped the buttons when it was available, and we used the L1. Well, that ain't gonna happen on this. I mean, you don't want to use these shoulder buttons. They're just awful. So that was a major negative for me because, again, I love this cart. I love this cart. So that kind of bummed me out. So I just avoid playing that cart at all cost on these Super Pockets. The other negative that I can say is, unfortunately, this is not Wi-Fi compatible, so you're not going to get firmware updates. So with that being said, this does not allow you to remap your buttons. You got to kind of go with the flow on how they have them mapped out for you, which isn't really that big of a deal for some. It just kind of bummed me out. It's not that it made me dislike the products or anything, because I love these things, but that was a major flaw in my book. I wish you would be able to map them buttons out. So those are my two negatives on that. So, you know, the pros outweigh the cons on these things. I do have a little bit of advice for you. You know, this is kind of a con, I guess. It does have a small screen. Obviously, that's a good thing and a bad thing, because it's a good thing because, you know, it's a Super Pocket. It's supposed to be small. It's going to have a small screen and everything. But if you wear glasses, like I do, I recommend you wear your glasses when you're playing these things, because especially on arcade carts, like the flying shooters, you're not going to really see like your plane or helicopter or spaceship, whatever game you're playing. But my recommendation to get like past that, and I know it doesn't work too well like on the VS and the EXP because it'll stretch the screen out and it'll make it look bad. But if you go into the settings and you're playing these arcade flying shooters and stuff, put it in full screen. It does not look bad on this screen at all. Yeah, it stretches it to the whole screen, but it does not like blur it out. It doesn't look bad, and it really helps out a lot. So yeah, I've had no problems like in the look department, like looking at the game when you put it in full screen. It looks absolutely fine on these things. So I do highly recommend taking that advice, especially on the flying shooters. Not so much like the beat 'em ups. You're not going to have to do that. That's already full screen. So flying shoot 'em ups, most definitely. You're never going to see your character, whatever you're controlling. So all in all, I do highly recommend these things. $60, you can't go wrong. I mean, and on top of that, if you're going to be new into the evercade ecosystem, or world, whatever you want to call it. You can buy carts and you can start playing on this, and that will kind of give you a heads up if you like it or not. You don't have to spend like a whole bunch of money. You can add on from there. Like if you like these, hey man, maybe you might want to go to the console, the VS. The VS is great. I mean, that's powering my arcade. I absolutely love this thing. The EXP, I can see where some people might shy away from that. Why get an EXP when you already have like these? And the EXP is a little more pricey. That's like $150. But the VS, you can get a premium pack for like $130, and that comes with 2 arcade cards. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about these Super Pockets. So yes, I do recommend these things. They have held up great over these last almost 90 days. They get played pretty much daily. I have a lot of fun with them. I just know which games or which cart to not play in these things. Everything else that I own personally, they all play great. So I hope this helped you out. If you were on the fence of checking these things out, like purchasing them, great products, man. Lots of fun, lots of cool games built in to both of them. So it has a little bit of something for everybody. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Really helps out the channel a lot, and I greatly appreciate it. And until the next episode, game on, everybody.